Welcome to the Designing Hollywood podcast in association with the John Campea Show. I am your host, Robert Meyer Burnett. The Designing Hollywood podcast show is dedicated to all things movies, the movie industry, and its talented professionals. Today's episode is sponsored by Universal Studios Costume House. Today's guest is a 33-year-old stuntman from the UK. He came over to the States 12 years ago to pursue a career in the film industry. He grew up playing basketball for the northwest of England until he found parkour, which took over his life at the age of 15. From the ages of 15 to 21, he traveled the world to learn and grow his passion. He entered competitions and made his way to Los Angeles. He booked a Nike commercial when he was 20, which ultimately left him enough money to move to LA and pursue a career in stunts. Over the past 13 years, he's worked on movies such as The Jungle Book, Fast and Furious, Spider-Man No Way Home, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and most recently, The Fall Guy, where he was the lead stunt double for Ryan Gosling. Without further ado, it is our great pleasure to welcome stuntman Ben Jenkins to the Designing Hollywood show. Ben, welcome. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. How you doing?
You know, reading about you have such an interesting story about how you found yourself in the entertainment business, which I really love. But to start, when you were growing up, were you a movie fan, and were you a voracious movie watcher or not? And if you did love movies, what were some of your favorites?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a fan of movies. I remember the early days, the early Disney movies, The Jungle Book and The Lion King were always some of my favorites. And then as you get older, I loved like the Rush Hour franchise
Right.
and anything Jackie Chan just really just captivated me, and it just kind of I was so because I was a young and adventurous kid. I was always climbing things and jumping off things, and um, I think it was me as an adventurous kid who almost did stunts without even knowing. I think
Right.
that's kind of the reason. So I was always a fan of those action movies. And then growing up and you kind of and growing up as a young teenager and starting parkour, um, it just stunts and parkour have a very they're very similar in lots of ways. To be a good stuntman, I feel
Mm.
parkour is a very very essential skill to have. And I realized that as I got older and older. But when I was a kid just training parkour, I was like, parkour is the only thing I want to do with my life. I don't want to do anything else. um, and then I found out, I made my way to America and met some people who were in the industry who did parkour, who did dancing, who did tricking, and they also did stunts. And I was like, wow, like these two, now I totally understand. Our job is to kind of come in and kind of hide in the shadows and create a character and be a part of the creation of a character in this movie that actor's face is all over. Let's just say Spider-Man, for instance, right? It's Tom Holland, it's Andrew Garfield, but you don't necessarily see the face of the stuntman, but the stuntman does a lot of those things, um, and that's part of our job. When I got into this, it's something that I'm aware of, and I'm fine with. I'm fine with coming in and kind of staying in the shadows, and the actor's face is all over it, and you just help kind of enhance the character. Um, so I was kind of unaware that stunts was even a thing when I kind of
Right.
was in my early days when I started parkour and I would watch these movies. I just thought, oh, Jackie Chan is doing all this stuff, and Jackie Chan was doing all this stuff, his own stunts. So I was unaware until I got to LA and I met these people through parkour, that it was kind of it was actually a job, and how well it would kind of fit me and my skill set. um, so I don't think growing up it was ever even an option. It was I just wanted to I was young and I was like, I don't need to pay bills. I'm just gonna do parkour for the rest of my life and I'll be fine. I'll do some live shows here and there and I'll make enough money. It'll be fine. And then reality, hits you in the face, and you realize that you need to make a living, and what better way to kind of utilize the skill set I had of training in parkour and my sports background and my physical background. It just made so much sense. And then when I realized it was a possibility, I jumped right at it.
Now I've got to ask you, because I'm a huge James Bond fan.
Uh-huh.
And when Casino Royale, when you first saw Daniel Craig, there's the whole opening with that amazing parkour sequence with Sebastian I don't know how you pronounce his last name, but
Sebastian Foucan, yeah.
Foucan, yeah. I
Sebastian
mean,
Foucan, yeah.
he that was an amazing action sequence. I mean, absolutely astonishing. And I think that sort of made the world even more aware. I worked on a commercial campaign for a video game called Mirror's Edge, which was a parkour video. I worked and we were on rooftops in LA shooting this commercial with guys doing amazing parkour, and I was right there. I edited that commercial. I'm like, this is amazing.
Oh, wow.
These guys are incredible. And it really, and watching that Bond film, I was like, man, that's just unbelievable. And I still watch parkour videos on YouTube and things like that. I love the whole.
That kind of opened the door and opened people's eyes, especially in the parkour world, that films are possible. Sebastian Foucan is one of the pioneers of parkour. Him and David Bell, both kind of really brought it to the mainstream with they're the founding fathers of it, really. They really made it mainstream, and David Bell did his own movie, District B13, which was fantastic. If you've seen that, such a great movie. It's a French movie, but it's fantastic.
No, it's awesome.
Some of the chase scenes are incredible, and then you get Sebastian Foucan in James Bond, and it's the opening sequence of James Bond. It's like a 10-minute chase, and it's unbelievable, and it really kind of opened people's eyes in the community to just see kind of what's actually possible. And that was kind of early in my career as well. I think I'm not too sure if I'd been to America yet, and met those people and realized that stunts was a thing, but it was early in my career.
So when you first started to meet stunt people and people that worked in film, obviously, was there a learning curve? Were you trained by stunt people to sort of take your parkour skill set and turn it into a viable stunt person skill set? What was that like for you, and how did that begin?
Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of different aspects to being a stuntman. You can kind of specialize in one thing. You can be a well-rounded stuntman. You can, some people are even hired as on a stunt contract or on a movie when they don't necessarily do stunts, but let's say we need like a specialized person on stilts, right? We need that. So we'll reach out and hire that. Or if we need like a professional diver or unicyclist or very specific skills. You can reach out and hire that. But as a stuntman, it's good to know everything. It's good to be able to ride bikes. Well, I mean, I've on Fall Guy, I had to ride a scooter, like an electric bird scooter, through Sydney. And one of my best gifts, my mum tells me this to the day, she's like, one of the best gifts I ever got you was those metal razor scooters. I would use it all the time, and I would go out in it, I would jump steps, I got really good at it. So not knowing that 10 years later on a movie it would help, like just kind of riding it. So it's they're just like very weird, and I mean, just a razor scooter is not really a skill, but like when I got to LA, your bread and butter is your fights, your falls, your wire movements. That's kind of your bread and butter, and then you learn all those. You go to classes, you learn from friends, and you just go to open gyms. I was fortunate to have a really good mentor called Travis Wong, and he's one of my best friends. He owned a gym in LA called Jam, Joining All Movement, and before that was White Lotus. So we would go there to open gyms and train with people and learn from different people. Lots of coordinators would be in and out of that gym. you know, kind of scouting sometimes, coming to open gyms sometimes and seeing
Mm.
what talent is there, or holding workshops. So he really did put me in front of a lot of people, kind of important people in the industry, coordinators who were like, "Who's that guy?" You know, or he would be like,
Right.
"Ben," because I was always quite a shy person, you know, and I never really wanted to like show off or do anything. I was kind of like withheld, and you know, but Travis kind of brought like something out of me where he would just make me do. He was like, you know, Ben's coordinator over here. Do a front flip and grab the beam, and then do a double backflip into the foam pit. Like, show him what you can do. And I'm like, okay. So I did it, and the guy was like, wow, that is amazing. So, you know, he really did put me in some good positions and put me in front of the right people. But stunts, you know, to be a successful stuntman, you have to either be really good at your one craft. Like there's lots of like specialist drivers, cars, motorbikes. You know, there's some skydivers. There's yeah, high fall people. But as a general stuntman, if you want to kind of work a lot, it's good to kind of broaden your skill set and you know fights, no falls, know how to do wires, know how to you know do fire and air rams and you know
Yeah.
high falls to a certain height and if you can just pluck skills from everywhere, just learn some weapons or whatever it is you can do that you would potentially do in a movie. If you can learn those and add to your skill set, that's never a bad thing.
Okay, I gotta ask, what's your favorite thing to do?
My favorite thing,
Yeah,
oof.
when you're in a movie, what
I
is
mean,
your favorite thing to do?
I've been quite fortunate, and I've got to do kind of everything. I love a good chase scene. You know, it's takes me back to my roots of parkour.
Right.
I feel very
Now, are you
comfortable
talking
there.
foot chase or vehicle chase?
No, foot chase. Yeah,
Yeah,
for me, because
like that
so
Casino Royale opening, running
like the
through this.
Casino Royale it was so cool. You know, I basically I like to think I kind of do everything aside from drive and motorbikes, and then you know, split like high falls. You know,
Right.
I'll do some high falls. You know, comfortably up to kind of 50 feet, but anything past that or you know when you get into like the 100 foot, the 150 foot, like that's serious business, and it's you have to really train for that, and like just to have the training facilities for that, having a structure that's 150 feet high to train
Right.
for that
I don't
is
think
you
I'd
have
want to
to.
do that.
Yeah,
Not, not
it
for me.
gets yeah. So I mean, like on Fall Guy, we had you know there was four doubles for Ryan on Fall Guy. There was myself, Justin Eaton. We both kind of did the bread and butter of everything. Logan Holiday did all of the driving and the motorbike work, and then Troy Brown did the high fall. And Troy Brown and Bob Brown, his dad, came out and prepped the high fall. They were there for like a month and a half. You know, so when you want things done right, you know, the stunt designer Chris O'Hara, he just hired the right guys for the job, and you know, you don't overload one person with too much responsibility, and spread it out, and but ultimately get the right person for the job.
Sure. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, prep is one of the most important things. I've been on a lot of
Mm-hmm.
movie sets, and the safety of the stunt people is of primary importance.
Mm-hmm.
How much safety training do you guys have to go through before? I mean, is there a certification program for stunt people? Like, there's a guild, a union. Do you have to like what are the prerequisites to be able to get on a set to do stunts on a feature film?
So it's quite crazy, really. So different parts of the world have different requirements. So in England, there's something called the British Stunt Register, where you have to go through a series of training to get your certification in. I think it's like six skill sets
Mm,
throughout stunts. So that it can be anything from horse riding, diving, gymnastics, martial arts. You know, fill in the blanks. And then I think that's the same or similar for Australia. I found that out when I went to Australia, um, and then you go through kind of a grading system where once you pass it, you have to work on set as kind of like a bad guy 22 for 30 days and kind of get like
yeah.
your 30 days of kind of like ND work, and then you can become like a principal double or performer. But in America, you can just be a stunt person if you have the skills. It's quite insane. And I didn't know that. You know, I'm from England, and I moved there 12 years ago, and I feel when I moved to LA, a lot of the industry moved to London, and we kind of like swapped. So I've actually never worked in England before. This is my first job working in England
Wow.
in the 12, 13 years that I've been in the business. So it's quite nice that I get to come up and see the family, you know, every other weekend. It's quite a long drive, but yeah. So it's you know it's I don't think it's a bad thing to have, you know, requirements for
Sure.
that. But I also think um, it's not something you want to get into if you're not ready to get into it. I mean, I feel, I feel like I did it right, and you know, the people that I was surrounded with made me do it right. They made me train in all of these different aspects and learn how to fall, learn how to take a hit, learn how to ride wires, learn how to hit an air ram, learn how to do all of these skills that you need so when you get on set you are ready. I think it's very careless if you don't do that and show up expecting that you can do that. I mean, you know, I've heard lots of stories that people get called and people say, you know, can you do this? And they're like, yeah, I can do it. And they get set and they just can't do what they say they're going to do. And it's dangerous, you know?
Right.
So, so yeah, I mean, it's different all over the world. I think, you know, if you're in America, you kind of got to take it upon yourself to learn those skills that, with what you need to kind of use in the film industry, and make sure you're safe. But that goes into kind of the prep that we do on movies. You know, just any movie that you do, you have, depending on how big the movie, you know, 2 to 4 months of prep, and during that prep phase, you're practicing everything. You're doing like everything you see in the movies that we do. You know, the quick 2 second stunt that you see has been rehearsed 20 times. It's been done with pads, with a helmet, with hard pads and onto pads, and the clip that you see on the movie screen, that 2 second clip is the kind of final stage of it, with less pads and no pads on a car, and to the concrete, and that's the kind of 1 or 2 takes that you do, that really, that you've prepared for, but what really matter.
Well, I have to ask you, since I know that you're working again with Ryan Gosling on Project Hail Mary. A lot of that, I mean, the book. I can't wait to see this movie, but a lot of the book takes place in space in zero
Hmm.
gravity.
Hmm.
So, are you doing zero gravity prep work? Are you going to be
Uh,
like like I would imagine from the wire rigs and things like that? That must be fun.
Yeah,
Is
absolutely. It's a very different movie from the one we just did from the Fall Guy, but yeah, we're playing around
no
and we're
razor scooters in
experimenting.
space.
No razor scooters in space. But yeah, we're playing around with different wire rigs and seeing what works best, and trying to come up with just a really good way and a method of doing it that kind of translates well to
It
camera, and it's quite fun.
it's interesting. Almost like 20 years ago, I shot behind the scenes on Superman Returns,
Hmm.
and it was amazing what they were able to do with wire rigs to fly Brandon Routh
Yeah.
around. And
Hmm.
I was blown away at the versatility of what they were able to do. In
Hmm.
three-dimensional space. I shot a lot of video on how and watching it happen, and I was just amazed with the wire rigs and the things that they were able to come up with, and decelerators and everything. It was wild to watch what the stunt team was able to do and create. And the Fall
Yeah.
Guy, one of the things I really loved the Fall Guy. I thought the Fall Guy was terrific, and it's such a love letter to the entirety of stunt work. And I loved how diverse all the stunts were. I mean, you like touched on everything. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the prep work for the Fall Guy, and how long were you on that project before you actually started shooting, and what was the training leading up to that film like? Because and how it looked like you had an enormous stunt team working on this film.
Yeah, it was. it was, I think it was a 9 month. I think we were in Sydney for 9 months total. 3 of those months was prep and a 6 month shoot. So,
Wow.
which for a movie that size, stunt wise, like it wasn't the biggest budget movie, but it was a big budget movie. But for the stunts that we had to do, it was we could have done with an extra month. It was
Right.
we were so busy in prep and we were so busy in shooting. Um, but yeah, it was just it goes through so many different processes. It goes through the creative process, trying to figure out what we actually want to do, what gag we want to do when we're on fire, and how we want to get hit by the car. Do we want to go over the car and land behind the car, or do we want the car to slam its brakes on, hit the front mirror, and then slide off and kind of come
Right.
into camera? So like, all of those stunts are like carefully thought out by the team and David and Ryan. Just trying to piece it all together to make it work. Even the chase across the Harbour Bridge was, how are we gonna get across the bridge on the door? Like, what's a good creative way that makes sense to get on the door and
Right.
use a shovel to hold on? Like, just like filling in those pieces and the blanks there to make the story work and make the action work and make it all fit together. Um, that's a challenge. Going through the whole creative process of it in prep, and then doing the stunts. Rehearsing the stunts and we had so much to rehearse. It was one day I was rehearsing a car hit, and the next day I was going to a parking lot and getting dropped 120 feet to rehearse the opening scene, and then the following day we were doing a fire burn. It was my first time ever doing a fire burn, so we the guys, the rigging team and the fire safety team over there came in and prepped me, and we kind of lit my arm on fire first, and then we did the legs, and then we did the back, and then we did kind of a 3/4 burn, and then we tested what the wardrobe would do, and ultimately gave me a chance to kind of be able to play with the fire, see what it does, see how it reacts, see what the wind does, see where it goes, see if you're more on fire or less on fire, like when it goes out or what to do. Like, it's just good practice to kind of get in the put yourself in those situations, especially if it is your first time. So so much goes into prep. We really cover everything, and that's really the thing that people don't see is, and how we make it so safe is because we've rehearsed it 50 times.
Do you ever get scared? Like, were you scared to
Yeah,
do
yeah,
to
yeah,
like to be set on
absolutely.
fire?
Um, no, no. I mean, I feel like I don't necessarily get scared of that. It was, it's quite controlled, and we have the team were amazing. It it more so like I was scared of like the scene at the end, the third act, where I'm like hanging from the helicopter 100 feet in the air, like from like two tiny wires. Like, sometimes you're just hanging and you're like, I hope these wires like work as well as I know they can, but I hope nothing goes wrong. And it's just like things like that are a little weird, and I definitely, yeah, fear is a thing, but I feel like I've that's one of my strongest assets is my mind. I feel like and that's where parkour comes into play. Like, from 15 years old, I was climbing this. I'm looking at a factory right now. It's outside of my house, and I would climb it all the time. And my house up here, I would jump off my roof onto my trampoline in the back garden all the time. Like, I was good at handling fear when it comes to things like that, and heights or pushing the limits of physical movement if I'm trying a new flip for the first time, or a flip that no one's ever done before. Like, I would, I was good at, I was always good at handling it. It's more so the fear of, um, you know, doing getting hit by a car and in front of 300 people with 10 cameras pointed at you, and wanting to do a good job, and wanting to be able to do it again if you have to. And there's lots of kind of, me and Logan, we've talked about it recently. We've been together a lot recently, and we've talked about it, and lots of sleepless nights just thinking about God, I have to get hit by a car tomorrow. I have to get set on fire, and it's not necessarily the stunt. It's like the whole thing that is, it's like tomorrow's the day. We've we've rehearsed it so much, and we've prepped it, and I hope it goes well, and I hope it goes as well as rehearsals, or I hope it, I hope I don't disappoint. Like there's so much pressure, and that kind of adds to the fear. Um, so so yeah, I absolutely get scared of things, and sometimes I'm just scared of things. Sometimes like it's scary, like hanging from a tiny, tiny wire, like 150 feet up, and you look down,
Right.
oh, like, and then you get dropped, and then it's all good, and then, but that's what really, I mean, I don't know if it's me or if I'm crazy, but I kind of like a bit of fear, and I like a bit of pain, and sometimes like getting hit by a car, you can't really do it without it hurting a little bit, you
Right.
know. So it's like if you're standing in front of a car that's driving 20 miles an hour at you, it's gonna hurt a little bit,
Yeah, of
and
course.
you're gonna hit the ground hard. So it's those little things. Oh, this is gonna suck, but all right, let's go. And but I kind of like that, I like a bit of pain, and I don't know if it's me or if it's weird, or it's I don't know. I like it. Yeah.
You know, one of the things I think in Quentin Tarantino's last movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, you had Brad Pitt playing Cliff Booth, the stuntman,
Yep.
who was Rick Dalton, Leonardo
Yep.
DiCaprio's stuntman, and they were like best friends.
Yep.
What is the relationship when you're working with an actor? Obviously, now you're doing multiple projects with Ryan Gosling. What's it like developing? How does the friendship develop with an actor who you're doubling for? Do you guys become friends? Is there a rivalry, or what is it like when you're working with an actor, and how do you develop a relationship with an actor, like when they step away and you step in? Are there things that you talk about, like in terms of, because you have to do a little bit of acting, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think it ultimately depends on the people. It depends on the stunt performer and the actor. Some people are cool, some people are not. But I've been quite fortunate to work with really cool actors, and you do develop a friendship and a bond. I mean, if roles were reversed and I had a stunt double who was looking after my health and safety and making sure I'm hooked up safe and making sure that I'm not going to get hurt, I would trust that guy too. It's
Right.
you build a lot of trust. If it's like these people are hooking me up to a wire and I'm getting sent 150 feet in the air, like I better trust this guy, and so you develop a friendship, you develop trust, um, and it just so happens Ryan is fucking awesome. He's great, and and he really took a shine to the stunt team. He was around a lot. He wanted to learn. He would even come to set when he wasn't working and just watch the stunts to make sure they went well and just to show his support.
Wow,
And
that's very cool.
that just goes to show the character that he is. um, but yeah, you become friends with them. You spend a lot of time with them. You're and it's not just sometimes like I'm gonna step in and get hit by a car now and then I'm gonna leave. Like I feel like it's important to kind of watch the actor and see how they move and see their mannerisms and how they do simple things and how they run and how they fall and try and mimic that and match that. I ultimately want to be the best match I can for the person I'm doubling, and the hair and makeup and the wardrobe, they kind of make you look very similar. Um, but physically that's my job. So
Right.
I want to do a good job, and I want to make sure that I'm kind of moving the way they do, and um, and there's lots of questions that I ask. How would you do this? Like, how would you? I don't know. Get up after you got smashed through a window,
Yeah, yeah,
or
sure.
whatever. Like, how would you how do you want to do this? Like, because ultimately you're going to be taken over. So let's work together to create like a cohesive movement. Um, and he does the same, right? If it's something that Ryan was unfamiliar with, he would, how would you do this? Like, what would you do here? How would you hold this? Like, and then I'd give my opinion and my thoughts on it, and it's a collaboration. We said a lot. It it took five of us to make one Colt Sievers, to make one Fall Guy.
Right.
And there was four stunt doubles and Ryan, so it really did take five people to make one Fall Guy. And it was a massive team. I mean, it took way more than five people. The entire team was a massive part of it. But when in playing that, there was ultimately there was five of us, and it's definitely a team effort. And you have to kind of rely on your team.
I would imagine so. Is there's a lot of talk now. I mean, the Academy Award talk, you brought it up earlier, but what I have found interesting is that people seem to think that just because there's a lot of CG and digital technology, that somehow stunts are less important, but really it works in tandem. I mean, you have a lot of wire removal has made it possible that you can get much more dynamic shots because you can remove wires. So you can do far more interesting things with the camera and the stunt work that wasn't possible before because you couldn't erase those things. And I think it kind of works in tandem. And one of the great things about the Fall Guy is it was almost like a master class in all the different kinds of stunts that you guys could get away with, and that's what made it so much fun to watch. There was just it's almost like you guys sat around and thought, what can we do now? And the topping, and it made the movie so much fun to watch, and I enjoyed it. Now, when you guys were doing that, like sequences, when you talk about the planning that goes into sequences, and what was, say, on the Fall Guy, what were some of the more complex stunts that you were doing, and how long would, say, one of those take from the time you first started training or prepping for it to the time you actually shot it? What are we looking at in terms of time frame?
I'd say, I mean, you have stunts like, let's just say, the car hit, right? It's fairly simple. You get a driver, you get a car, you hit someone with a car. We prepped it a little bit. We prepped it for a couple of days, and then you just do it, right? So that's a fairly quick stunt. I would say the high fall took a long time.
Yeah.
Troy and Bob kind of had to prep that. I wasn't very involved in that. I was kind of busy doing something else, but they were supposed to be out there for 2 weeks, and I think they ended up staying out for like a month and a half, partly because the weather had to be right for it.
Yeah.
But they were also kind of prepping the whole thing. But the scene that took the longest by far was the whole armor chase, the bin truck chase.
Yeah.
And that was because, I mean, we had an incredible effects department, like special effects. Those guys were absolutely brilliant. They created a whole rig that trailed the bin truck to the truck, and it made it spin on its side and then drug down the street. And then they created a separate rig, which was kind of like a crane over the top that held the bin truck and span it around while it was moving. So like those guys, and they created the rig for the helicopter. Those guys were absolutely incredible. But that stuff takes time, right? So it takes time. You gotta come up with the idea. David and Kelly, and Ryan and Chris all kind of came together and came up with that brilliant idea of it spinning around and hitting something and spinning around while we're inside it, and then tipping over and then across the harbor bridge. It was a massive scene, and I don't even know how long it took to film that. It was spread out kind of over the course of it. Like, we could only get the harbor bridge we got the harbor bridge on a Sunday morning from like 6 to 10, and it was dark. It was dark till like 8 or something. So we had 2 hours or something to film on there. So we were rehearsing at 6 o'clock in the dark. We had the bridge shut down. We were weaving in and out of the cars, and we were figuring out the path, figuring out the rig. So when Ryan gets here, it's all ready for him. And that's just one of the scenes. That was just one of it. We shut down the M4 tunnel for a night or a couple of nights, I forget. And then we shut down streets, and then the whole effects rig comes in, and we crash it through glass and roll it down some stairs. And it was a massive scene that I mean, weeks and weeks that it took to shoot, and then months to prep. It was on with all the departments, I would say collectively a couple of months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is there a stunt you've always wanted to do that you haven't done yet?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty fortunate. It's funny. I've told this story a lot, but when I got the call from Chris O'Hara, I was on another movie, and in fact, I actually, is that Warlock in the back there, on the
Um,
back of your,
uh,
is that Guardians of the Galaxy? Who is that on the back?
which
Back left, back left.
this way?
That guy. No, 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 the other way.
Other way.
Sorry, it might be your right. The
Warlock.
guy on the,
No,
no,
it's
no, keep going. Who's that guy on the, keep going, other way. Other way, other way, other way.
oh, this way.
Yeah, yeah, above Yoda's head. The four guys sit above Yoda's head.
Oh, that's Ozymandias from The Watchmen.
Oh,
That's
is it?
Matthew Good.
It kind of looks like Warlock, the guy
You,
from
you
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, from yeah, Adam Warlock. Yeah, yeah.
Adam
It's
Warlock. Yeah.
not, it does look like him though. Yeah.
But I saw that at the start. Sorry, I kind of cut myself off of it, but I saw that at the start of the and I was like, is that Adam Warlock? But I was doing Guardians of the Galaxy, doubling Adam Warlock when
Yeah.
I got the call, which is why I pointed that out. But so I was in full costume.
By the way, I will be
Painted
getting Adam Warlock. They just haven't made
Great.
him yet.
Great. But so I was painted gold. I had the blonde hair and the jewel in my head, and I got a call on lunch break from Chris, and he told me about the Fall Guy, and he asked if I want to do it, and he kind of, he said it's a big movie, it's gonna be massive, and he said, are you up for the task? And I said absolutely. I said, Chris, I've never done a car hit and I've never done a fire burn before, and I'd love to do both. And he said, well, good thing is there's both in there and you can do both. So, and that's pretty much, I mean, shy of, some car stuff that I would love to learn, and some bike stuff, but that's in the future, and I'm not necessarily, it's not necessarily on the bucket list. But as a performer, I feel very fortunate that I've done lots of stuff, and Fall Guy really kind of, it ticked all of those boxes. I mean, I did more stunts in Fall Guy than the majority of my career. It was quite insane, the workload that we had, and I'm so thankful to Chris for putting that trust in me to do that. It was a dream job. It really was, and we did a lot. Did a lot of things that I bet I'll never get to do before again. I bet I'll never get to do that. Like, when do you get to, like, hang from a helicopter or surf across the harbor bridge, or
Right.
set on fire 8 times in one day and ratchet it into a wall and do air rams and car hits and crash through windows and chase a tram on a train on a scooter and crash through. It's like, that isn't even all of it. It was insane, and it was such an incredible opportunity. So yeah, I mean, so I forgot what your question is, but no.
No, I just asked it. No, you answered. I just asked what are the things you haven't been able to do, but you just told me on Fall Guy you got to do some things you hadn't been able to do, and now you've
got to do. I did a lot beforehand, and the fire burn and the car hit was the ones that I hadn't got to do, and I got to do them on Fall Guy.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. That movie is just so much fun to watch, and you guys did so. I've seen it twice in the theater, and the audience loved it. It was so much fun to see that. Yeah, it really. It's funny too, because in that movie, they're making a movie called Metal Storm, and I worked for the company that made the movie Metal Storm back in the 80s. Yeah, I was working for them in the 90s, and it was so wild to me. We had Sarah Evelyn, the costume designer. We interviewed her for the show too. And then Mark Avery, who's Ryan's stylist, he was on the show as well. And, they were talking about the Metal Storm movie, and I'm like, how did you guys come up with that? And I asked Sarah Evelyn, I go, before you were doing the costumes, did you watch the original Metal Storm? She goes, I did. And I'm like, it was so weird, because having worked for that company,
Did
I thought
they
it was...
tell you how they came up with the Metal Storm?
No.
To put it... Oh, God, I feel like I might butcher it. But I in fact... Because I think David told me the story recently, but I think they were going through the kind of Universal catalog, and they couldn't figure out what movie to do in the movie, and and I think Kelly McCormick was like, what about Metal Storm? That looks really cool. And and David was like, yeah, like, I guess, yeah, that's cool. And I think they sent it to Ryan and Emily, um, and yeah, I think one of them loved it, one of them hated it, and then one of the one who hated it came around to it and ended up loving it, and yeah, so but I'm not sure if it was David or Kelly who saw it, but one of them was searching through the catalogs and they came across Metal
Oh,
Storm and were like, that's dope. Yeah.
amazing, because that movie was
Yeah.
actually in 3D. The original
That's
was
it.
released in 3D.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
when it during the early 80s, there was
Yeah.
a time when the 3D had a resurgence. They made Jaws 3D. They made
Okay.
Friday the 13th 3D because it was the third Friday the 13th movie, and then they did Metal Storm: The Destruction of Jared Sin in 3D,
Wow.
which was sort of, so that was a lot of fun. I mean, it was fun to see
Wow.
that in the movie.
Yeah.
Now, as we move forward, obviously you're working with Ryan again, but as you move forward, where do you see the future? I mean, stunts have been around since time immemorial. Harold Lloyd back into the 1920s and silent movies, there was incredible stunts from the dawn of cinema. And do you see stunt work as sticking around? I mean, as computer technology gets more and more sophisticated and AI and all that, stunts don't seem to be like they're going to be going anywhere. We're going to still need stunt work for movies. Do you think stunt work has a great future? And do you plan on staying in stunt work for a long time to come?
Absolutely. I mean, it would be crazy to think that it wouldn't be staying around. I mean, even if sure, you have stunts on all levels, right? You have big and small stunts, right? Like you can, it's quite easy to CG someone falling from a helicopter on a really wide shot, but like how easy is it to, let's just say, like a Jackie Chan movie, for instance, like
Right.
all the smaller stunts where he's just running around a corner or hopping up on a wall or jumping through something or just a little fight scene, like that's all stunts. Like it just seems so complex to just, all right, we don't need you now, Jackie. Just go sit down and we'll edit you running through this thing and crack like jumping over a bin or it just like stunts can be massive, like a 150-foot high fall out of a helicopter, or they could be small. It could just be climbing over a fence or a little fight scene. Like you're always going to need big and small stunts. So and I get it, like it's safer to CG someone falling 150 foot out of a helicopter, um, but it's far better to have someone do it organically, and I think that's what and that's what we did in Fall Guy. We everything we did was organic, and we really wanted to showcase stunts in every aspect, and like you said earlier, kind of tick all the boxes and make sure we do the high fall, the burn, the car hit, the car jumps,
Right.
the fire, the air ram, like it kind of hit all the boxes, to kind of let people know that we can still do it and it's still good. I mean, I don't know about you, but whenever I watch a movie, if I'm watching a superhero movie and I'm like, it kind of takes me out of it when I see, oh, that's definitely CG. It's like the whole
Right.
thing was just CG. It's like it takes me out of it. But Fall Guy was so great because you're so immersed in it the entire time because it's real, and there's a connection with a film like that you don't get with others that are heavy CG. Um, but I think we work hand in hand. I think it's like you said, it's CG is there's a time and a place for it. There's a time and a place for real stunts, and there's a time and a place for CG, and we can work cohesively together to make it seamless and good and entertaining and keep you involved in the movie and invested in the movie. And too much CG, in my opinion, just pulls you out of it. So I think Fall Guy did a lot of things for the stunt industry. It definitely shined an incredibly positive spotlight on it.
Hmm.
With help of Ryan and Emily and David and Kelly. They were really just using every opportunity they can to kind of talk about it and give it the recognition that it deserves, just like every other department. What they did at the Oscars was incredible, and I think it's a step in the right direction for just fair recognition in the industry.
Oh, 100%. Well, now listen, we always ask on this show, uh, when we're talking to you professionals, for the next generation, the people, young people that might be interested in getting involved in stunt work, what might you suggest? How could people start? How can people start prepping for a career in stunts? And I know you had your parkour background, but if you were going to tell somebody that was interested in stunt work, how could they follow in your footsteps?
Well, lots of people in this, in this generation and the older generations, they had one thing that they loved. They were martial artists, right? They competed in the circuit, and they were martial artists, or they were professional gymnasts, or they were professional divers, or they were professional motocross riders, or rally drivers, or parkour athletes, right? You have the thing that you love, that you have a passion for, that you found early on, and that you kind of, I always use this phrase: you put your 10,000 hours in, right? Like that's how you kind of, when you kind of master something. Um, and and it just so happened that the skill that I learned, and the skills that these martial artists learn, and the drivers, just it fits so well into stunts. um so we kind of grew up, and kind of, that was our way into stunts. Now it's becoming so much more well known that there are stunt schools everywhere. There's open gyms that you can go to, and kind of really broaden your skills early if you want to do that. If starting early is massive. I wish I started golf earlier. Like, I feel like I would have been really good, and I could have, like, I would have been a professional golfer. You have your thoughts, but I wish I started golf at an early age, and did things a little sooner. And it's tough, like, starting something later on in life. It's almost like when you're early, you have a head start. So
Sure.
getting into a skill set early that you find that interests you. I did so many things that I was just, this is boring. I don't want to do this. And you don't try as hard. You don't do it to the best of your ability. You don't put 100% effort in, and in turn you just don't get as good, right? And I was so involved, and I loved parkour, and I loved, this, my whole back garden. Credit to my mum. I grew up in this house, and the back garden is like, we live on with an end house. So we live, there's the garden, there's the house, the garden is on its side, and then there's the road, and it's like a long skinny garden, and it's just the perfect size for a trampoline. And so I had two trampolines in here. We dug the ground out, and we cemented some high bars in there, and we would do uneven high bars to the trampoline, and flip onto the road, and jump off the house onto the trampoline, like, and we
So your
loved it. And
parents were supportive.
they were very, yeah. I mean, supportive, but also, like, I remember my mum worked nights back in the day, and she came home and just had a trampoline in the back garden. I was like, surprise! There's a trampoline here. Um, and yeah, I feel like she definitely gave me free reign of the back garden, and for a good, you know 10 years she had no back garden, because it was mine, and it was full of trampolines, and teenagers. Like, we had, on a nightly basis, on a sunny day after school, we would have easy 10, 15 people just around the trampoline, just playing pig, playing add-on, playing things, jumping onto the crash mats, climbing up onto the roof, and jumping off the house. Like, it's quite hilarious. So, I found something that I love to do, and I just kept at it, and I traveled the world doing it, and I met new people, and I learned from new people, and ultimately those skills translated into being a stuntman. But I think for anyone, trying to, wanting to get into stunts, find that one thing that you like to learn, and get good at it, and then broaden your skills, and yeah. But you also, it's people say all the time, like, oh, I'd love to be a stuntman. I'm like, well, you should try it. Like, it's not as glamorous as you think. Like, it sometimes it sucks getting hit by a car, or sometimes it sucks getting ratcheted into a wall, and sometimes sometimes it hurts, and sometimes it sucks falling down 30 times, like getting clotheslined 30 times, take after take, and have to do it again and do it again, because either you messed up, or the camera messed up, or someone else messed up in the scene, or they just need to do it again because you need to do it again. Like, it's not as glamorous as people make it out. I've had some horrible nights where you're like, oh my God, why am I doing this? Like I remember we were doing night shoots in Atlanta on a movie, and I can't remember what movie it was, but I get like, I think it was Godzilla. I get like zapped by Godzilla or a lightning strike in the rain at night. So there's a rain machine, and I'm the first person to die, and I have to lie down wet in a puddle for the entire take all night. So it's like
Oh,
there's things like that. Like sure, like you watch Fall Guy, and you're like, wow, that's amazing. It's glamorous and it's so cool, and you're doing such incredible stunts. But then I've also done lead in a puddle for 12 hours all night, you know, in a rain under a rain machine in the freezing cold, and so it's you know there are incredible times and there are times that suck, and I feel that just like maybe any other job. So
right.
you really got to love it. Yeah.
Well, I think that's very good. That's very good advice. And now, other than you're now working on Project Hail Mary. Do you have something that you have other things coming out as well? Did you do something after Fall Guy that you've done, or what can we expect to see from you in the future?
Yeah. So it was. I mean, recently it's been such a crazy time, right, for the movie industry. We had COVID and we had that long break, and that kind of split up the movies. I remember I was filming Red Notice right up until COVID, and then COVID shut down the movie, and then they kind of went back. I forget how long was it? How long was COVID? Like 10 months, 12 months, a year?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I
crazy.
forget how long it was. It was a long time, and then they came back and they finished the movie, and then they had like a quarantine section, and then I didn't go back. I went to Spider-Man, and then did a couple of other movies, and then we did Fall Guy, and then the strike happened. So like over the course of the past couple of years, it's been long layoff for COVID and then long layoff for the strike. So I did Fall Guy, and then I did Bad Boys 4. So I think that is coming out soon.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Bad Boys 4 is coming out. Can't wait to see that. That looks great.
Yeah. So I did Bad Boys 4. And then the strike happened, and then once the strike was over, it was kind of right into Fall Guy press and Fall Guy promotion, which me, Chris, and Logan kind of was lucky enough to be a part of, and what an experience that was. So we did Fall Guy promotion, and then straight into Ryan's next movie, which was Project Hail Mary.
Well, which is, I don't think there's going to be any high falls in that, though.
No. If they are, it'll be very slow.
Yeah. But that in itself, you know, could be. No, I'm really, my most eagerly awaited movie. I think it's coming out in 2025. Is Project Hail Mary. I can't wait to see it. I think he's perfectly cast. I would encourage anybody to read that book because the book was so much fun.
It's fantastic.
It's fantastic. Well, Ben Jenkins, it has been so much fun to talk to you about your career as a stunt person, and I would imagine working with you must be a blast because you seem like you're always having fun doing this stuff. So
thank you very much. Thank you.
I can't wait to see more from you. And you got Bad Boys 4 coming out. I guess that's Bad Boys for Life. Is that Bad Boys for Life? Bad Boys for Life. Really looking forward to that. It looks great.
Me too.
It looks like there's some great stunts in that. So we'll eagerly await seeing that. And I think that comes out next month. I think.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, they're doing the promo for it now. So yeah, it should be out. Over the next couple of weeks or next month. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Ben Jenkins, thank you for your time and coming on the Designing Hollywood show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to the Designing Hollywood podcast, brought to you by Universal's costume department, the best in the world.
A special thank you to founder and executive producer Martika Ibarra, co-founder, costume designer, the legendary Marilyn Vance, and of course, John Campea from The John Campea Show. Thank you to all of our viewers for tuning in, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Tune in to the audio version wherever you listen to podcasts. I am, of course, your host, Robert Meyer Burnett, and you can find me on Instagram at rmburnett, or find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, or on YouTube at PostGeekSingularity. Thanks very much. Like, subscribe, and give us your comments. What would you like to see on the channel? Right down below. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode of Designing Hollywood.